The ship of Theseus. Imagine a ship, a proud wooden vessel, sailing the sea. Time passes. Salt and storm wear it down. One by one, every plank is replaced. Rotten wood removed, fresh timber installed. Years go by, not a single original piece remains. And yet, we still call it the ship of Theseus. Now imagine someone collects the discarded wood. They rebuild a second ship, piece for piece, exactly as it once was. Which is the real ship? The one with continuity, or the one with authenticity? Let that question rest in your mind for a moment. Now, replace the ship with you. Your body replaces its cells regularly. Your thoughts, memories, feelings shift. Who you were at 5, 15, 25. It's different, isn't it? Your voice changes. Your face, your ideas. You're rebuilt over time. So who are you now? Are you still the person who made that mistake years ago? Are you the one who fell in love or fell apart? Or are you just calling yourself that person, borrowing their name and their memories like a costume? And if someone else had your memories, your voice, your way of smiling, would they be you? You might feel like a continuous thread. But what if you're just a story you've told yourself again and again until you believed it? The ship sails on, whether it's the same one or not. The brain in a vat. Imagine, for a moment, that your brain has been removed from your body, silently, without pain. It rests now in a vat of clear liquid, perfectly preserved. Electrodes run from it into a supercomputer, a machine capable of simulating every sensation, every color, every sound you've ever known. The sun on your skin, a signal. The voice of someone you love, a program. The warmth of a blanket, the bitter taste of coffee, the breeze through a half-open window. All carefully constructed illusions. If this were your reality, how would you know? You might say, I can touch things, I can see. But those are just signals, interpreted by your brain, electrical impulses no different than those the machine provides. All your memories, your senses, your certainty about the world could be part of the simulation. This is the heart of the brain in a vat problem. There's no definitive test to prove you're not dreaming your life. Descartes wrestled with this centuries ago. He wondered if a demon was deceiving him. Now we wonder if it's code. You could be dreaming now, not metaphorically, not spiritually, literally, dreaming the people you love, the job you wake up to, this very moment. So where does that leave you? Maybe this is real. Or maybe you're suspended in silence somewhere, with nothing but the illusion of company. And if you are dreaming, does it even matter? As long as it feels real, what's the difference? Eternal return, Nietzsche. Close your eyes and imagine this. You are living this exact moment, this breath, this blink, this heartbeat, again and again and again. Nietzsche called it the eternal return, the idea that the universe may be circular, endlessly looping. And within that loop, every moment of your life plays out in the same order, not once, not twice, but forever. The happiest memory you have is yours to keep, again and again. But so is the worst day you ever lived. The mistakes you wish you could undo. The things you regret but can never take back. You don't get to change anything. No lessons learned. No do-overs. Only repetition. This concept isn't meant to comfort. It's meant to test. Nietzsche asked, if you had to live this exact life forever, would you still say yes to it? Would you embrace the pain, the boredom, the small embarrassments, knowing they never truly leave you? Or would the thought fill you with dread? What if the only eternity you're granted is this one? This version of you, these days, this life? So maybe the question isn't just whether the eternal return is real, but whether you're living a life you'd be willing to loop. Again, and again, and again. The problem of other minds. Every day, you talk to people. You laugh with them, argue with them, miss them, love them. But here's the quiet truth. You have never experienced another person's consciousness. You assume they feel things just like you do, that their pain hurts, that their thoughts are real. But you've never seen a thought that wasn't your own, never felt another's joy or sadness, except through words and guesses. What if everyone else is just performing? Complex machines, flesh puppets with perfect responses. They smile, they cry, but inside, nothing. No observer, no one home. Philosophers call this the problem of other minds. You know you're conscious, but everyone else? You're just taking it on faith. Think of someone close to you, someone you trust completely. Imagine them saying, I love you. How do you know they mean it the way you do? How do you know they even understand love as you understand it? They could be mimicking emotions they've never felt, and you'd never know. This doesn't mean they aren't conscious, but it means you'll never be sure. Not really. You live inside your own head, always, alone. All understanding comes through filters, through language, through behavior, through hope. You can never see another soul, not directly. So ask yourself, what if you're the only real mind in a world of convincing ghosts? The Omelas Dilemma. There's a city, golden, vibrant, alive. In Omelas, the sun is always gentle, the people are always kind. There is music, beauty, joy, no suffering, no pain, no fear. It seems perfect. But there is a cost. A child, hidden away, locked in a dark room. They live in filth, neglected, unloved. They are terrified. They are alone, and they will never be released. This child's suffering is the foundation for the city's happiness. Its torment is the condition for peace. Every citizen of Omelas learns this truth. Some are horrified, some cry, but they all accept it. Because if the child is freed, the city's joy will crumble. Everyone will suffer. So the child must remain in misery forever. Some citizens cannot bear it. Quietly, they leave Omelas. They walk away into the unknown. They abandon paradise rather than live off the back of a broken child. But most, they stay. Le Guin's tale forces a question upon us. How much suffering are we willing to ignore if it keeps us comfortable? How many people suffer so we can live the way we do? Who, in our world, is locked in that room? It's not just a story, it's a mirror. You might think you'd be the one who walks away, but you're listening to this in a warm bed, a safe room, a quiet place, and somewhere, someone else isn't. Solipsism. Here's a question that doesn't go away once it finds you. What if you're the only conscious mind in existence? Not just the main character in your life, but the only player in the entire game. Everyone else is an illusion. The voices of friends, the kindness of strangers, the love you feel for others, all of it, fabrications of your mind, not out of selfishness, but by design. A dream spun for you by you. Solipsism is the view that only your own mind can be known to exist. You have thoughts, you feel pain, but everything else, every tree, every building, every smiling face is just part of the simulation. You might think, of course others are real. They cry, laugh, struggle. But how do you know that? You can't enter their minds. You can't feel what they feel. What you see is surface, skin, words, gestures. You assume there's something behind it all, a soul, a self. But that's only ever been a guess. If solipsism is true, you've never actually met anyone. You've been alone the whole time, whispering to echoes. Even this voice you're hearing now is just something you imagined, a comforting ghost. Maybe you made the world this way because you couldn't stand the silence. Or maybe someone else dreamed you, and you're just the echo. The trolley problem. A runaway trolley barrels down the tracks. Ahead, 5 people are tied to the rails. You stand nearby, beside a lever. If you pull it, the trolley will switch tracks. But there's a person on that track, too. Do you pull the lever? Kill one to save 5? Most people say yes. It's logical. Save more lives. But now imagine this. The person on the second track is someone you love. Your sister, your child, your friend. Now, do you still pull the lever, or do you freeze? And what if you have to push someone off a bridge to stop the trolley? Would your hands obey? Would you trade the comfort of clean conscience for 5 strangers' lives? The trolley. Problem isn't really about trolleys. It's about the haunting distance between reason and emotion. It shows how our sense of right and wrong bends under pressure. It asks, can you live with guilt if it spares others? Or do you sacrifice others to preserve yourself? There's no right answer. That's what makes it linger. You might never stand by train tracks with a lever in your hand, but life will offer you quieter versions. Moments where action harms. Moments where inaction does too. You'll make a choice. Maybe you already have. And long after it's over, you'll wonder if you pulled the right lever. Zombies, philosophical zombies. Imagine someone who looks exactly like you. They walk like you, talk like you, laugh at jokes, cry at sad movies. But inside, there's nothing. No awareness, no inner world, no eye behind the eyes. They're not trying to deceive anyone. They simply go through life on autopilot, without consciousness. These are philosophical zombies, or P-zombies. The idea is this. It's possible, in theory, for a creature to behave exactly like a human, without ever being one on the inside. You couldn't tell the difference. Their brain sends signals. Their mouth forms words. They say, I'm in pain, or I love chocolate, but there's no real experience behind the words. Just programming. just surface. Now, take that further. What if you've met one? What if someone you know, someone you trust, is a pea zombie? They laugh, they care, but it's just noise, beautifully arranged. Or, and here's the harder question, what if you're the zombie? You say you're conscious, but what if that's just part of your code? Maybe there's nothing behind your thoughts but echoes, mimicry, imitation of life. Consciousness is the great mystery. We know it exists because we feel it, but we can't see it. We can't measure it. We only assume others have it because they act like we do. But maybe they're all just shadows. Maybe you are too. Fatalism. Close your eyes and think about your life, the choices you've made, the forks in the road, the moments you said yes or no. Now ask yourself, could any of it have gone differently? Fatalism is the belief that all events are fixed, that the future is already written, and no matter what you do, it cannot be changed. It's not quite the same as determinism, where events are caused by prior events. Fatalism goes further. It says, what will happen must happen, even if you try to fight it. You were always going to listen to this. You were always going to hear these words. You might feel free, but your path is already paved. Some find comfort in that. If your mistakes were inevitable, maybe they weren't really mistakes. Maybe everything happens for a reason, or at least happens as it must. But there's another side, a darker one. If the future is fixed, your efforts don't matter. Your suffering doesn't change the outcome. Your joy doesn't either. You're just playing a role in a story that can't be edited. And the worst part, you'll never know for sure. You'll feel like you're choosing, even if you're not. That's part of the illusion. So ask yourself again, could it have gone any other way? Or were you always going to end up right here, wondering if you ever had a choice? The great filter, existential risk. Look up at the night sky. Billions of stars. Billions of chances. The universe is ancient and vast. So where is everyone? This is the Fermi paradox. The silence. The stillness. The question. One answer? Something stops civilizations from reaching the stars. We call it the great filter. It might be behind us. Maybe life is so rare we already beat the odds just by existing. Or maybe it's still ahead. Maybe every intelligent species reaches a point, right around now, where they destroy themselves. War, climate, technology. Something always ends them before they can reach beyond their planet. If that's true, then we are standing at the edge, and we won't see the drop until we fall. It could be tomorrow, or a century from now. But the silence out there might be the sound of every other voice that ever spoke, going out like a candle. Maybe the universe is full of ruins. Maybe we'll be one of them. Or maybe, just maybe, we are the great filter. The ones who reach beyond the stars and become the thing others should fear. Either way, the silence is not comforting. It's a warning. And we don't know if we've already passed the test or if it's waiting for us in the dark. Camus's absurdism. The sun rises. You wake up. You go to work. You come home. You sleep. Again and again, the rhythm of life plays on. But somewhere beneath it, something doesn't feel quite right. Why are we here? What is all this for? And when you really ask that question, when you strip away the distractions and noise, you're left with silence. No grand answer, no cosmic purpose. Albert Camus called this the absurd. The tension between our craving for meaning and the cold indifference of the universe. You want things to matter. You want a story, a destination, a reason, but the world gives you none. So, what do? Some try to escape the absurd, religion, fantasy, distraction. Others sink beneath it, lost in despair. But Camus offers a strange kind of rebellion. Accept the absurd and live anyway. Smile without reason, love without purpose. Find joy not in some higher truth, but in the act of living itself. He likens it to Sisyphus, the man condemned to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, a punishment, a joke. But what if Sisyphus stopped hoping for freedom? What if he stopped asking why? What if he simply looked at the rock and smiled? Then, Camus says, he wins. Because even in a meaningless world, we can still choose defiance. And in defiance, strangely, we find freedom. Heidegger's Being Toward Death. There's a hum beneath your thoughts, a quiet truth you rarely say aloud. One day, you will die, not metaphorically, not someday far away. But really, your heart will stop. Your body will cool. The world will keep going without you. Martin Heidegger believed that this looming end shapes everything about how we live. He called it being toward death, the idea that to truly live authentically, we must confront the reality of our own death. Most of us don't. We distract ourselves. We pretend we have time. We treat death like an event that happens to other people, old people, unlucky people. But it's coming, slowly, quietly. With every breath, we move closer. And yet, there's power in looking death in the face. When you remember that time is finite, choices feel sharper. Moments feel heavier. The trivial becomes trivial. The real rises to the surface. You realize you are going to die. But right now, you're not. And that's the strange gift of death. It makes life urgent, precious, singular. Heidegger didn't want us to fear death. He wanted us to own it, to let it wake us up. Because when you live with the end in mind, you stop sleepwalking. You start choosing. And maybe that's what it means to be alive. Not to ignore death, but to carry it with you, like a quiet lantern in the dark. The teletransportation paradox. You step into a sleek as metal chamber. There's a soft hum, a flash of light, and suddenly you're across the galaxy. The machine has scanned your body, every atom, every neuron, and destroyed the original. Then it rebuilds you, atom by atom, on the other side. You feel normal. You remember everything. You step out and say, I made it. But did you? The teletransportation paradox asks, is the person who arrives the same person who stepped in, or just a perfect copy? Because if you were destroyed, killed, really, and rebuilt, then the one who exits isn't you. It's someone else, built to think they're you. Would you willingly use that machine? What if you knew your original would be gone forever? Now, flip the question. What if the machine didn't destroy the original? Then there'd be two of you, two versions, both claiming to be the real one. Same memories, same mind. Which one is you? Or are both just shadows of a version that no longer exists? This thought experiment haunts the idea of personal identity. Are you your body, your mind, your memories? And if all of those can be copied, what's left? If you disappeared tonight and someone else woke up thinking your thoughts, would it matter? Would the world even notice? Would you? The problem of induction. Every morning, the sun rises. Every time you drop something, it falls. Fire burns, water wets. And from that, we believe the world is predictable, that patterns will hold, that tomorrow will look like today. But David Hume pointed out a problem, a quiet crack in the foundation of knowledge. He asked, why do we believe the future will resemble the past? It seems obvious, but it's not. You only expect the sun to rise because it always has. You expect gravity to work because it always does. But that's circular. You're assuming the future will follow the past because the past tells you it will. That's not logic. That's habit. The truth is, we have no guarantee. Tomorrow, the rules might change. Gravity might reverse. Time might shatter. Cause might no longer lead to effect. It sounds absurd, but you can't prove it won't happen. This is the problem of induction, a whisper of doubt that shakes the bedrock of science, reason, and trust. It doesn't mean the world will betray you, but it could, and that small, quiet could lingers. Everything you know is based on expectation, but expectation is just hope in disguise. Derek Parfit's personal identity. Who are you, really? You might say, you're the sum of your memories, your thoughts, your feelings. But what if those could be copied or split? Derek Parfit imagined a future where we could clone the brain. Imagine this. Your body is dying. Doctors scan your brain perfectly. Then, two identical bodies are created, each with a copy of your mind. They wake up. They remember your life, your family, your secrets. They both believe they are you, but only one can continue your life, right? Or maybe neither can. Parfit argued that identity might not be as solid as we think, that what matters isn't a single self, but psychological continuity, a connection of memories, thoughts, and experiences. But that continuity can be stretched, forked, fragmented. If two people are equally connected to who you were, who's the real one? Parfit's unsettling idea is this: personal identity doesn't matter. What matters is the continuation of consciousness. And if that can happen in more than one place, then you were never a single thing to begin with. You're a story held together by memory, a thread that can split, break, or repeat. And when that thread ends, it might not be as tragic or as clean as we think. Zeno's paradoxes. Take a single step across the room. Simple, right? But what if I told you you could never get there? Zeno of Elea, a Greek philosopher, believed motion itself might be an illusion. His most famous paradox goes like this: to walk across the room, you must first get halfway there. Before that, you must get a quarter of the way. Before that, an eighth, a 16th, an infinite series of steps. And if there are infinite steps, how can you ever finish? Each step becomes smaller, yes, but they never quite stop. Infinity tucked into every movement. And yet, you do cross the room. You live your life, one motion after another. So, what's going on? Mathematically, we say the infinite sum converges. It works out, but the paradox remains haunting. Not because we can't walk, but because it reminds us that what seems simple might not be. Maybe movement is real, or maybe it's just the illusion of progress through stillness. And if motion can be doubted, what else can? Are you really aging? Are you really changing? Or is your whole life a flicker, moments stitched together like frames of a film, giving the appearance of time? Maybe you're already at the end. Maybe you never moved at all. You just thought you did. The Munchausen trilemma. How do you know what you know? Not just trivia or facts, but deeper things. That the earth orbits the sun. That people have feelings. That the past happened. How do you justify your beliefs? The Munchausen trilemma tells us something uncomfortable. Ultimately, you can't. Any attempt to prove something ends in one of three unsatisfying options. 1. Infinite regress. You justify one belief with another, and then that one with another, forever. 2. Circular reasoning. You end up using a belief to support itself. 3. Dogmatic stopping point. You say, this is just true, and stop asking questions. No matter what you believe, it seems you're balancing on something shaky. There's no final, unshakable ground beneath your knowledge. No bedrock truth that can't be questioned. So what keeps everything from falling apart? Habit? Language? Agreement? You're floating in a web of beliefs that support one another like a house of mirrors, each reflection reinforcing the next. But behind it all, there's nothing solid. And yet you keep going. You wake up. You eat. You trust the floor to hold your weight. We all do. But somewhere inside, maybe you know, deep down, that your whole understanding of reality is built on foundations that vanish when you look too closely, like trying to lift yourself by your own hair and wondering why your feet never leave the ground. Locke's memory theory. You are you because you remember being you. That's what John Locke believed. That personal identity is not about the body or even the soul. It's about memory, continuity of experience. You are the person who remembers your childhood, your awkward teenage years, your first heartbreak, your first joy. But what happens when memory slips? If someone forgets who they are through trauma or illness, are they still the same person? And what if someone gained all your memories? Would that make them you? If memory is the thread that ties you to your past self, then it's more fragile than we'd like to admit. A single injury, a bit of aging, and that thread can fray. Now consider this. You don't even remember most of your life. Most days fade. Most moments vanish. You forget dreams the moment you wake up. So, are those forgotten versions of you still you? If someone could show you a film of yourself, doing things you don't recall, laughing, crying, shouting, would you believe that person was you? Or would they feel like a stranger? And one day, if you lose even more, when your own name sounds foreign, when every face is unfamiliar, will you still be there? Or will you already be gone, long before your body is? Negative utilitarianism. What if the greatest moral duty is to end suffering? That's the heart of negative utilitarianism, a variation on the classic utilitarian idea that the best action is the one that brings the most happiness. But negative utilitarians flip it. They say, don't maximize pleasure, minimize pain, because pain is deeper, louder, it overwhelms. A moment of joy may be nice, but agony can destroy a life. From this view, preventing suffering is more urgent than creating joy. But here's where it turns dark. If the ultimate goal is to eliminate suffering, then the logic leads somewhere uncomfortable. What if the only way to guarantee the absence of suffering is the absence of life? No one can suffer if no one exists. This idea isn't meant to inspire action, but to reveal the cold consequences of pure logic. What sounds like compassion, reduce pain, can spiral into something inhuman when applied absolutely. It's a reminder. Ethics isn't always soft. Morality, taken to extremes, can feel monstrous. What matters more? A world of joy with some pain, or no pain at all, even if it means no joy? You might say, life is worth the suffering. That pleasure balances the scale. But from the negative view, every scream, every tear, every trauma that could have been avoided wasn't. And so the question lingers, is a world without suffering worth the cost of never existing at all? The block universe. Time feels like motion, a stream. The present moves from the past into the future, dragging us along. But what if time doesn't flow at all? The block universe theory, an idea in physics and philosophy, says that past, present, and future all exist at once, like a book. The first page is no more real than the last. All the moments are written. You just happen to be reading this one right now. In this view, every moment of your life, your birth, your last breath, is equally real, equally fixed. You're not moving through time. You're located in it. That means your future already exists. Your mistakes, your triumphs, your death. They're all there, waiting, and your past, still there too, preserved like a fossil. You're still laughing somewhere, still crying, still running barefoot in some long-forgotten summer. We feel the passage of time, but maybe that's just how consciousness experiences the block, one moment at a time, like flipping through frames on a reel. If this is true, you don't become. You are, always. You never really lose anything, but you never really escape anything either. Everything you've ever been still is. Everything you'll become already is. So ask yourself, are you living a moment worth preserving? Because in the block universe, it already is. Forever. The problem of perception. Right now, you're looking at something, a wall, a ceiling, maybe your phone. But are you seeing the world directly? No. You're seeing a version of the world created inside your brain. Light bounces off an object, hits your eyes, and sends signals to your brain. Your brain interprets those signals and guesses what's there. So when you see a chair, or a tree, or a face, you're not seeing the thing itself. You're seeing your brain's model of it. And that model could be wrong. Think about dreams. You see and hear things there, completely fake, but utterly convincing. Your brain conjures entire worlds from nothing, and you believe them. So, how do you know this isn't just another layer of that illusion? Philosophers like Locke and Kant explored this gap between the world as it is and the world as we experience it. The thing in itself versus the image in our minds. We don't perceive reality. We perceive representations, echoes, a simulation of the real, made by the flesh inside your skull. Your whole life, every smell, every color, every word is filtered, edited, rendered. So what's behind the filter? Maybe something beautiful. Maybe something we couldn't even comprehend. Or maybe there's nothing there at all. Maybe you're not looking out at the world. Maybe you're just looking deeper into yourself. Boltzmann, brains. Let's say the universe is infinite, endless time, endless space. That's a lot of randomness. Now imagine particles swirling forever, occasionally forming strange structures. Stars, galaxies, and sometimes, improbably, a brain. A fully formed human brain, floating in the void, with all your memories, all your thoughts, all your feelings. But nothing around it is real. It's not part of a body. It was never born. It simply came into existence by chance, with false memories preloaded, memories of a life it never lived. This is the Boltzmann brain. Named after physicist Ludwig Boltzmann, it suggests that if the universe is truly infinite, then a lone, conscious brain like this is more probable than the orderly world we think we live in. Think about that. It's statistically more likely that you're a random, momentarily conscious brain hallucinating this room, this life, this sentence, than that you're a person living in a stable, physical universe. You might vanish the moment the next thought forms, because maybe this thought is the only one you'll ever have, the only one that will ever exist. You are a flicker, a glitch, a brief flash of imagined meaning in eternal, meaningless dark. It's just math, cold, uncaring math. And if it's true, then all of this, all your fears, your joys, your memories, are nothing but sparks. Just noise in a brain that shouldn't be here. The unexpected hanging paradox. A judge tells a prisoner, "You will be hanged at noon on a weekday next week. But it will be a surprise. You won't know the day until the executioner comes for you." The prisoner thinks, "It can't be Friday. If he's still alive by Thursday night, he'll know it must be Friday, so it wouldn't be a surprise." So, he rules out Friday. Then Thursday too. for the same reason, and Wednesday, and so on. Eventually, he convinces himself it can't happen at all. But one day, the guards come, and he's shocked. The execution was a surprise. This is the unexpected hanging paradox. And it breaks logic's neat little boxes. It's not just about punishment, it's about how knowledge, especially about the future, can become slippery and self-defeating. The moment you try to predict the unpredictable, you destroy the thing you're predicting. It's like trying to know the exact moment you'll fall asleep, or trying to surprise yourself. The more you think about it, the more it unravels. The more it unravels, the more you're pulled back in. And in a strange way, that's the core of life. We know the ending. We know death come, but we don't know when. And even if we try to prepare, it will still, somehow, feel like a surprise. The repugnant conclusion. Imagine a world with 10 billion people, all living wonderful lives. Healthy, happy, creative, loved. Now imagine another world. One with far more people. Trillions. Each life just barely worth living. Still positive, but dull. Gray. Thin, according to some versions of utilitarianism. Philosophy based on maximizing well-being. The second world is better. Why? Because there's more total happiness, even if no one is truly flourishing. This leads to what philosopher Derek Parfit called the repugnant conclusion. A strange, unsettling idea that we should aim for the maximum number of people with barely tolerable lives, instead of a smaller number with great ones. The logic is clean, cold, and deeply inhuman. It reduces life to arithmetic, joy to quantity. But what makes a life worth living? If we follow this path too far, we end up valuing lives that are empty because they add one more drop to a vast ocean. We could cram the universe full of consciousness, and none of it would matter if none of it was rich or meaningful. And yet, utilitarian reasoning forces this conclusion, even if it feels wrong. That's the repugnance. What if maximizing happiness means building a future no one wants? A crowded, dim world of shallow lives, where no one suffers deeply, but no one truly lives either. Would you want to be born into that? Would you want to help create it? Sartre's Bad Faith. Jean-Paul Sartre believed freedom was terrifying. You are not a fixed thing, he said, not a role, not a title. You are existence, constantly in motion. And that means you must choose, always. But most of us don't want that responsibility. So we lie to ourselves. We pretend we are something static, a good person, a teacher, a failure, a success. We wear these roles like armor. Fixed, familiar. This is what Sartre called bad faith. A self-deception so subtle, we hardly notice we're doing it. We say we have to stay in a relationship, or that we can't change careers, that we're too old, too young, too stuck. But the truth? We're free. Unbearably free. And so, we run from that freedom. Because it means every moment we're choosing, and every choice defines us. Even inaction is a choice. Even silence is a voice. Bad faith is comforting. It's a lullaby, a way to sleep through the terror of being alive. But it comes at a cost. You become a character in your own story, not the author, and slowly, the real you slips away. The question Sartre leaves us with is sharp. Are you brave enough to be free? Or are you just playing a role, waiting for someone else to call cut? Pascal's wager. Blaise Pascal, a 17th century philosopher and mathematician, had a simple idea. When it comes to belief in God, you should treat it like a bet. If God exists and you believe, you gain everything: eternal life, salvation. If God doesn't exist and you still believe, you lose nothing. But if God does exist and you don't believe, you risk losing everything. So why not believe just in case? It sounds logical at first, safe, pragmatic, but then it starts to twist. Because what kind of belief is that? If you're only pretending to believe, hedging your bets, is that sincerity? Is that faith? In which God? Which religion? Believing in the wrong one might be just as dangerous as believing in none. Suddenly, the wager isn't one clean bet. It's a roulette table with infinite wheels, spinning forever. And at the heart of it, something darker. Pascal's wager isn't about discovering truth. It's about avoiding punishment. It treats eternity like a gamble, and your soul like a chip on the table. You're not seeking meaning. You're just afraid of losing. But here's the whisper behind it all. Maybe the divine isn't a judge. Maybe there's no wager to win. Maybe belief based on fear is just another mask we wear to quiet the night. And maybe there's nothing waiting at the end, except all the silence we came from. The liar paradox. This sentence is false. Think about that. If the sentence is true, then what it says must be the case. But it says it's false. So if it's true, it's false. But if it's false, then what it says is not the case, which means it must be true. You're caught in a loop, not a fun, circular kind, a logical trap, a paradox, the liar paradox. And it's not just a quirky brain teaser, it's a crack in the structure of reason, a sentence that destroys truth by trying to define it. Philosophers and logicians have struggled with it for centuries because it shows that language, our most powerful tool for understanding the world, can turn against us, can fold in on itself. And if one sentence can become untouchable by logic, what else can? Are there thoughts we cannot think? Questions we cannot ask? Truths that, when spoken, unravel themselves? It's unsettling because it lives right at the edge of meaning, like staring into a mirror held up to another mirror, a reflection of a reflection of a reflection. And at some point, you stop seeing anything real. You just get static. Maybe truth isn't a solid thing. Maybe it's something that crumbles when you grip it too tightly. And maybe the words we trust most, statements, facts, definitions, can sometimes whisper nonsense in just the right way to leave you questioning everything else. Moral luck. We like to think morality is fair, that you're judged based on your choices, not on outcomes you can't control. But life doesn't always work that way. Imagine two people. Both drive home after drinking too much. Same road, same risk, same decision. One gets home safely. The other hits a pedestrian and kills them. One is seen as foolish. The other is seen as a criminal. Same action, different consequences. And that difference, something they didn't choose, changes everything. This is the problem of moral luck. You're judged not just by what you intend, but by what happens afterward, things shaped by randomness, timing, fate. It gets worse. What if you're praised for a decision that almost ended in disaster but didn't? Or blamed for an accident you tried desperately to prevent? Where does moral responsibility end? At intention? At result? Somewhere in between? We want morality to feel clean, earned, just. But in truth, it's tangled in chance. Your entire reputation, who people believe you are, might rest on one twist of fate. A near miss, a second too late, a moment you never saw coming. And so we live in a strange tension, choosing as though we're in control, while knowing full well we're not. We hope we're judged fairly, but the universe doesn't care about fairness. Only we do. Despair, Kierkegaard. Despair, Soren Kierkegaard said, is not just sadness. It's something deeper. It's a sickness of the self. You despair when you cannot become who you truly are. Or worse, when you don't even know who that is. There's the despair of weakness, when you know what you want to be, but feel you can't. You fold into a smaller version of yourself and tell yourself it's enough. Then there's the despair of defiance, when you know what you are and refuse to accept it. You wear masks, build personas, craft entire lives around a version of yourself that isn't true. Both are ways of fleeing your real self. But there's an even deeper despair, the one you're not even aware of, the kind that walks with you every day, quietly, as you smile and nod and go through life. A quiet hum beneath the noise of living. Kierkegaard believed that the human self is a relationship, a balance between who you are, who you think you are, and who you are meant to become. And despair is the collapse of that balance. But here's the cruel part. You can live in despair for years. Function, succeed, laugh. All the while, your true self is fading, starving, forgotten. You may never even notice. Because despair doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just whispers, and you mistake it for silence. The tolerance paradox. Tolerance is a virtue. Accept others. Embrace difference. Live and let live. But philosopher Karl Popper warned of a trap, a quiet contradiction hiding in the heart of open societies. If a society is completely tolerant, even of intolerance, then the intolerant can rise and destroy that tolerance. They exploit freedom to silence others, use openness to spread hate, until nothing is left but control. So, to maintain tolerance, we must sometimes be intolerant. We must refuse to tolerate those who would take tolerance away. It sounds simple, logical, necessary, but it carries a heavy cost. Who decides what's intolerable? Where's the line between protection and suppression? Between defense and censorship? Popper's paradox forces us to balance on a knife edge between preserving freedom and guarding against its enemies. And that edge can shift, slowly, quietly, until it's hard to tell whether you're defending liberty or smothering it. In a tolerant society, We don't want to silence voices, but sometimes, to protect the many, we must draw a line. Even if that line is jagged, even if it hurts, because sometimes evil wears a smile. Sometimes destruction begins with a speech, and sometimes the hardest thing to protect is the right for others to be, even when they try to take that right away. The Fermi paradox. The stars stretch in every direction, billions of them, with trillions of planets. The math tells us there should be life everywhere, civilizations, signals, something. But there's silence. This is the Fermi paradox, the contradiction between the high probability of intelligent life in the universe and the complete lack of evidence. Where is everyone? One answer is that we're early. Maybe life takes longer than we think. Maybe the universe is waiting to bloom. Another is darker. Maybe intelligent life tends to destroy itself. War, climate collapse, artificial intelligence. The moment a species gains the tools to reach the stars, it also gains the tools to end itself. There might have been others, civilizations older than Earth, now gone, burned out like stars no one saw. Or maybe we are alone, a statistical fluke, a strange spark that caught fire where it shouldn't have. But the silence out there, it's not peaceful. It's heavy. It asks, are we special or are we next? Because if the galaxy is quiet, there are two possibilities. There's nothing waiting for us, or there's something so dangerous no one survives meeting it. And maybe the silence isn't emptiness. Maybe it's a warning. The map is not the territory. You open a map. It shows roads, rivers, mountains, cities. But the map is not the place itself. It's a simplified version, a model, a story we tell ourselves about the world. The philosopher Alfred Korzybski said it clearly. The map is not the territory. We don't experience the world directly. We experience our maps of it. Mental shortcuts, language, symbols. When you see a chair, you're not seeing all of it, just the idea, the label. You've reduced something rich and complex into a word. And you do this with everything, with people, with yourself. You carry maps of who you are, your name, your past, the story you tell in your head, but none of it is the full picture. You are a living, breathing, changing mystery, and so is everyone else. The danger is when we mistake the map for the territory, when we think the label is the thing, when we stop looking and start assuming. That's when we stop seeing reality and start seeing only our version of it. The world is always more than your idea of it. And if you forget that, you risk getting lost, not out there, but in the folds of your own imagined certainty. Lovecraftian philosophy. H.P. Lovecraft didn't write about monsters, not really. He wrote about knowledge, forbidden truths, things too large for the human mind to bear. At the core of Lovecraftian horror is a terrifying idea. The universe is vast, ancient, and indifferent, and the more we understand it, the more we unravel ourselves. Imagine learning that humanity is not special, that we are ants crawling across a forgotten corner of space, that gods exist, not kind or cruel, but uncaring, immense, unknowable. To glimpse them is to lose your mind. In Lovecraft's world, knowledge isn't power, it's corruption. The deeper you see into reality, the less you can be human. Your sanity peels away like paint in the sun. And here's the twist. Some philosophers agree. They argue that our brains evolved not to know the truth, but to survive, to simplify, to cope. Reality might be stranger than we can handle, more dimensions, non-human intelligences, physics beyond imagination. So if the truth is out there, maybe it's better left unknown. Lovecraft's horror isn't that monsters might exist. It's that we're too small to ever understand what we're standing next to. And when we try, we break. Antinatalism. Most people see birth as a beginning, a gift, a light in the dark. But antinatalists see it differently. They ask, if life is full of suffering, is it right to bring someone into it? You didn't choose to be born. No one did. Yet here you are, thrust into a world of pain, fear, decay, and death. Yes, there's joy, but there's also heartbreak, disease, loneliness, war. For some, the pain outweighs the pleasure. So the question becomes, is existence a harm? Philosopher David Benatar argues that not being born spares you from suffering without depriving you of pleasure, because if you never exist, you don't miss joy. But you also avoid every tear, every wound, every ending. To bring someone into the world, then, is to gamble with their suffering. And what right do we have to make that choice for someone else? It's a view that sounds harsh, but at its core, it's about compassion, about the weight of existence, about seeing the pain others carry and asking whether it had to be this way. Not everyone agrees. Most don't. But late at night, when the noise of life grows still, the question can echo. Is it always better to exist than not to? And if not, why are we still choosing to begin? The problem of future generations. Your actions today will ripple forward into lives you'll never see. People not yet born will breathe air you helped shape. Drink water you never touched. Live in a world sculpted by your choices. But they can't speak to you, can't vote, can't protest. They can't plead for caution or ask for mercy. That's the problem of future generations. How do we account for the rights of people who don't exist yet? It's easy to ignore them. They're not here. They don't complain. They don't buy products or cast ballots. But they will inherit everything. Every greenhouse gas, every forest cut down, every decision we made for convenience, and they will live with it longer than we ever will. Some philosophers argue that our moral circle must include them. That justice extends not just to our neighbors, but to our descendants. But others say, how do we owe something to someone who doesn't yet exist? Where does responsibility end? The truth is, most of us live like the future will handle itself. But what if it won't? What if they look back, generations from now, and wonder why we let the sky darken, the oceans rise, the silence grow? They won't be here to thank us, but they'll be here with whatever world we leave behind. The simulation hypothesis. You're sitting somewhere, listening, maybe watching. You feel present, real. But how do you know you're not inside a simulation? The simulation hypothesis, popularized by philosopher Nick Bostrom, argues that if future civilizations develop powerful enough computers, they might run detailed simulations of their ancestors. And if they do it once, why not millions of times? Statistically, that means it's far more likely that you are inside one of those simulations than part of the original physical world. It doesn't mean you're in a video game. It means everything. Your senses, your thoughts, even your memories could be part of a highly sophisticated system. A reality rendered for you. The people around you, code, or simulations just like you. Even this idea might be something your simulation was meant to generate. But here's the part that truly unsettles. You can never prove you're not in a simulation. Any test you could create could also be simulated. You're trapped in a hall of mirrors with no way out. So then the question shifts. If the world feels real, does it matter if it's fake? If your pain is simulated but still hurts, is it any less real? If your joy is artificial, but you feel it, should you care? And if all of this is just a dream, would you want to wake up? Infinite regress, you ask. Why is the sky blue? Someone answers, because of how light scatters. But then you ask, why does light scatter like that? And then, why is the universe made that way? And then, why does anything exist at all? Each answer opens another door. Each explanation demands another. You never reach the end. This is infinite regress, a problem buried deep in philosophy, logic, and knowledge. Every belief needs a reason, but every reason needs another sense, and another, and another. Eventually, you reach a terrifying crossroads. You can keep asking, forever, or you stop. You say, because it just is. But that feels like surrender, like building your house on sand and pretending it's stone. So philosophers try to find foundations. Some point to logic, others to faith, others to axioms, truths that don't need to be proven. But what if there is no foundation? What if every truth is balanced on another, like a ladder that stretches into fog, with no beginning and no end? You climb anyway. You ask anyway, because what else can you do? But sometimes, in the dark hours, you might hear the whisper, there's no bottom to this, and no top. Just the endless climb of minds trying to find something solid in a world that may not have anything to stand on. The problem of the criterion. How do you know what you know? You might say, I use evidence, I use reason, I use logic. But how do you know those are the right tools? This is the problem of the criterion, a quiet puzzle that erodes certainty. To know if something is true, you need a method. But to trust a method, you already need to know what's true. Which comes first? Do you pick truths based on a method? Or do you pick a method based on truths you already believe? It's circular. Or worse, it's arbitrary. Like being asked to judge a contest, but no one can agree on the rules. Or being handed a ruler to measure truth, but no one knows if the ruler is accurate. Some try to fix this by choosing a starting point. We begin with reason, or we begin with faith, but every starting point is a guess, a leap, a decision to trust something before you prove it. And that's where the unease begins. Because deep down, maybe all our knowledge is floating, built not on proof, but on faith in the tools we chose to trust. You believe things. We all do. But behind every belief is a question no one has fully answered. Why do you trust the things you trust? And if you don't know the answer, are you sure of anything at all? Time travel paradoxes. You step into a machine. Set the dial. Go back 50 years. Find your grandfather. Before your parent was born, and you stop him. He never has children, which means you're never born. But if you're never born, how did you go back to stop him? This is the grandfather paradox, just one of many time travel puzzles that tear at the fabric of logic. Time, as we understand it, moves forward. One moment causes the next, cause and effect. But time travel flips that, makes the future change the past. And when that happens, reason breaks. If you change the past, you change yourself. But if you change yourself, who changed the past? Some theories try to fix it. Maybe every action creates a new timeline. You don't change your past, you just make another. But then, where do those worlds go? How many versions of you exist? Others suggest time is fixed, that whatever you did in the past was always what you were going to do. No freedom, no choice, just loops. Time travel isn't just science fiction. It's a mirror held up to causality, showing how fragile it really is. You think you're moving through time. You think yesterday is gone. You think tomorrow is waiting. But maybe time isn't a river. Maybe it's a knot, and we're already tangled in it. Language games, Wittgenstein. You say a word, tree. You picture leaves, bark, sunlight. But what if someone else hears tree and thinks of something totally different? A Christmas tree, a family tree, a memory, a feeling. Wittgenstein believed language isn't a mirror of reality. It's a game, a set of rules we agree to without even realizing it. Words only mean something inside those games. Pain means one thing to a doctor, another to a poet, another to a child. There is no pure, universal meaning, only use. This is called a language game, and once you see it, everything shifts. When we talk, we think we're exchanging ideas, but we might only be tossing sounds into the dark, hoping someone else plays by the same rules. Misunderstanding isn't a glitch. It's normal, built into the system. And if that's true, then reality, the one we describe with language, is always partly fiction. We don't live in the world itself. We live in the stories we tell about it. And those stories are built with bricks that don't always fit. So the next time someone says, "I love you," or "I understand," or "I'm fine," ask yourself, do they mean what you think they mean? Do you? Or are we all just players in different games using the same words to build entirely different worlds? Hume's guillotine. You watch someone lie, or steal, or hurt someone. You feel it. That's wrong. But where does that feeling come from? David Hume, the Scottish philosopher, pointed out something quietly devastating. You can describe what is, a fact, an observation, but you can't logically leap from what is to what ought to be. This is Hume's guillotine, the sharp divide between facts and values. You can say, he caused suffering. That's a fact. But the moment you say, therefore he shouldn't have, you've crossed a gap. You've added something that doesn't come from logic alone. Values don't flow from facts. Morality doesn't emerge automatically from observation. So where does it come from? Emotion? Culture? Instinct? And if it's not grounded in reason, how can we trust it? This idea doesn't mean morality isn't real, but it suggests we can't get there with facts alone. You can describe the world forever, in perfect detail, and never explain why something is good or bad. The guillotine slices cleanly through our sense of certainty. You feel what you feel. But beneath those feelings, there might not be logic, only the quiet echo of something older, deeper, something passed down, whispered, repeated, until we stopped asking where it came from. The unexpected observer effect. Imagine watching a stranger through a window, quietly, secretly. They don't know you're there. They act naturally. They reveal things they never would otherwise. Now, imagine the moment they realize they're being watched. Everything changes. This is the observer effect. The idea that the act of observing alters the thing being observed. It's known in physics, where particles behave differently under measurement. But it exists everywhere. People behave differently when watched, even by themselves. Have you ever acted for the mirror or adjusted your expression, knowing someone else might see it? Now imagine this. What if you're always being watched? By a god, by a simulation, by your own higher self? And what if that knowledge is why you behave the way you do? What if you've never actually been alone? Even your most private thoughts might be shaped by the idea of someone else witnessing them. So where then is the real you? Under the layers, or only ever present in response to the gaze of another? It's unsettling to think. Your truest self might be a version that no one, not even you, has ever seen. Because the moment it's seen, it changes. The paradox of choice. You walk into a store, 30 flavors of ice cream, 50 types of cereal, endless colors, textures, shapes. It feels like freedom. But then comes the hesitation, the second guessing, the regret. What if the one you didn't pick was better? This is the paradox of choice. The idea that too much freedom can make us less happy, not more. When every option is available, every decision becomes a burden. Each choice feels like a test, a chance to fail, a path not taken. You're no longer just enjoying something. You're haunted by the possibilities you left behind. This doesn't only apply to shopping. It applies to love, to careers, to lives. We are told we can be anything, do anything, live anywhere. And yet, that freedom can paralyze. You sit in the quiet and wonder, what if I chose wrong? What if the best version of my life is one I'll never live? What if I missed it? You don't want fewer choices, but sometimes you want someone to say, this is it, this is yours. Because in a world of infinite options, even happiness starts to feel like something you're failing to optimize, and the more doors you could open, the more haunted you feel by the ones you never did. The problem of identity, over time, you look at an old photo. It's you, but not really. A different face, a different voice, different fears, different dreams. So, is that person still you? This is the problem of identity over time. How do you stay you when everything changes? Your cells regenerate. Your habits shift. Your mind forgets. Even your personality evolves. The you of 10 years ago might not recognize the you of today, and yet you still say I. You still believe there's continuity, a thread, a soul. But where is it? Is it in your memories? They fade, they alter, they lie. Is it in your body? It's replaced piece by piece. Is it in your story? You rewrite it constantly. So what's left? Maybe identity isn't a fixed thing. Maybe it's not a solid object. Maybe it's a process, a verb, something being done rather than something that is. And if that's true, then you are just a kind of echo, a habit of thought, a shape water makes as it moves, not a stone, not a statue, but a wave, cresting endlessly forward, never quite the same, and never fully different. So the next time you feel lost, ask not who you are. Ask, what pattern am I right now? And where is it flowing? The unexpected hanging redux, reflections on uncertainty. Let's return to the hanging, the surprise that wasn't supposed to be, the moment when logic collapses and life still happens anyway. This paradox isn't just a puzzle, it's a symbol, a reminder that we cannot outthink fate, that no matter how carefully we calculate, life finds a way to catch us off guard. You try to plan, you try to control, you build structures in your mind, cause, reason, probability, and still, things surprise you. You don't know when the last time will be the last time, the last conversation, the last sunrise, the last safe breath. And even when you know something is coming, change, loss, endings, it still feels sudden when it arrives. We live as though we have time, but time is a trickster. It moves slowly until it doesn't. And maybe that's the lesson of the paradox. Not that surprise is logical, but that surprise is inevitable. Even the most carefully planned life will one day be interrupted. So don't waste time trying to avoid the ending. Live, knowing it's coming. Speak, knowing the silence will return. And love, knowing you won't always get the chance. Because one day, the guards will come. And even if you knew they would, you'll still be surprised. Buridan's donkey. A donkey stands between two identical piles of hay. They're equal in size, equal in distance, equal in every way. The donkey, unable to decide which pile to eat, starves to death. This is Buridan's donkey, a thought experiment that shows what happens when perfect rationality meets perfect symmetry. The donkey doesn't lack food, it lacks a reason to choose. And so, it does nothing. The tale sounds absurd, but it reflects something deeply human. Have you ever sat paralyzed between two good options, two job offers, two paths, two people? Have you ever delayed until the choice made itself? We think indecision is harmless, but it has weight. It costs us time, energy, opportunity. And sometimes, when the moment matters most, indecision is a decision. Buridan's donkey reminds us that pure logic can fail us. That reason alone can't always guide action. Sometimes you need something else. A spark, a feeling, a belief. Something irrational even. Because life won't wait for you to be sure. And often, the worst choice isn't left or right. It's standing still until it's too late. The last Thursday problem. Think about your memories, childhood, school, yesterday's dinner. Now, imagine this. The universe was created last Thursday. Everything, including your body, your brain, your memories, was formed exactly as it is now. There's no way to prove it wasn't. This is the last Thursday problem, a twist on the idea of falsifiability. You can't prove the world didn't begin just days ago, with all your memories pre-installed like files on a hard drive. Your scars, your photos, the history books, the fossils, all perfectly placed to appear old. And if it were true, how would you ever know? It's absurd, yes, but it exposes something strange. The past only exists in your mind and in records. We believe in continuity. We trust time flows. But that belief is built on faith. Faith in memory, in consistency, in the honesty of the universe. The last Thursday. Problem doesn't mean the universe did begin last week. It means your certainty is fragile, that the past is a story, a map of events you never truly witnessed. And if someone rewrote it all tomorrow, would you even notice? The problem of the self. You say I. You say it without thinking. I am hungry. I feel sad. I love. But what is I? What is the self? Is it your body, your mind, your memories? Some philosophers argue the self doesn't exist at all, not as a single, solid thing. Instead, you're a bundle of experiences, a flow of thoughts, a story being told one page at a time, with no central narrator. Buddhists call this anatta, no self, that the I is an illusion built by language and habit. You feel like a single, unified being, but you're not. You're fragments, layers, a flickering flame, not a stone. You change, constantly. Your thoughts contradict. Your personality bends to context. And yet, the illusion persists. You feel like you've always been you. But who is that, really? The self is a mask you wear to make the world feel coherent, to give the chaos a center. But what happens when you take it off? What's left behind the I? Maybe nothing. Or maybe something wordless, a presence that doesn't need a name. The drowning child. You're walking past a shallow pond. You see a child drowning. You could wade in, save them. You'd ruin your clothes, be late for work, but you wouldn't hesitate. So now ask yourself, if you'd save a child right in front of you, why not a child farther away? Why not a child starving across the world? One you could help with the money you spend on things you don't really need. This is Peter Singer's Drowning Child Thought Experiment, and it asks a disturbing question. Why do we treat suffering differently based on distance? Is a life worth less when it's out of sight? We tell ourselves we care, but our actions reveal something colder. Singer's point isn't to make you feel guilty. It's to show the quiet contradiction in how we think about morality. If a life is a life, why do we look away? We want to believe we're good. But sometimes being good means more than intention. It means acting even when no one's watching, even when the child isn't right there in front of you, even when the pond is oceans away. The silence of the universe. In the end, you are a consciousness floating in a vast, silent cosmos. No matter how full your life is, how noisy, how bright, there's always that space between moments. The quiet, the stillness. You were born from silence, and you'll return to it. The universe doesn't speak. It doesn't comfort or answer. It spins, drifts, burns, unconcerned. And yet you care. You want things. You feel. That contrast between your vivid inner world and the blankness beyond is the final haunting truth. It's not that the universe is hostile. It's indifferent. And in that indifference, we find both fear and freedom. Because nothing is promised. Nothing is waiting. And still, you can choose to love, to create, to care, to hope. You don't need a cosmic reason. Sometimes, the reason is the act itself. You light your little candle in all that darkness, and for a moment, there is something. The omnipotence paradox. Can an all-powerful being create a stone so heavy that even it cannot lift it? It's an old question. At first, it sounds like a riddle, a play on words, but the more you sit with it, the stranger it becomes. If the being can create the stone and then can't lift it, there's something it can't do. And if it can't create the stone, then again, something it can't do. So, can an all-powerful being be limited by its own power? This is the omnipotence paradox, and it quietly unravels the idea of limitless power. Not because it shows weakness, but because it shows contradiction. What does all-powerful really mean? Does it mean the ability to do anything, even things that are logically impossible? Things that contradict themselves? Can an all-powerful being make a square circle? A married bachelor? Can it create a world where 2 plus 2 equals 5? If not, is that a limit? Philosophers have offered answers. Some say omnipotence only applies to possible things. Others argue that power can't include contradictions, because nonsense isn't really a thing to be done. But the paradox lingers, not because it defeats belief, but because it challenges our language, our definitions. Maybe power, like time, like self, like meaning, isn't something we can fully hold in our minds. We try, we reach. But the moment we say infinite, we're already using finite tools to describe it. Maybe we invented the idea of all-powerful before we knew what it meant, and maybe we still don't. The experience machine. Imagine a machine. You step inside, close your eyes, and from that moment on, everything you feel is perfect. You'll experience a life of happiness, success, love. Every moment, exactly how you want it. You won't know you're in a simulation. It will feel real, utterly, totally real. You could live a beautiful, flawless life, but you'll never touch the real world again. Would you plug in? This is philosopher Robert Nozick's experience machine, a challenge to the idea that pleasure is all we need. If all that mattered were happiness, then of course you'd plug in. No pain, no loss, no risk. And yet, most people hesitate. Why? Maybe we want more than to feel good. Maybe we want our actions to mean something. We want truth, struggle, contact with the real, even when it hurts. To live without knowing it's fake feels like a kind of death. But pause for a moment. What if you already are plugged in? What if your life now, your sensations, your memories, your relationships, is another version of the machine? A simulation you can't escape, only feel? Maybe you're already living the life you chose without ever remembering that you chose it. And if that's true, does it matter? Isn't the pain still pain? Isn't the joy still joy? Or is the realness of life something deeper? Something we long for, even if we can never explain why? Maybe it's not just about happiness. Maybe it's about being awake, even if the dream is beautiful. The veil of Maya. You think you know the world. You see trees, buildings, faces. You touch things, hear sounds, speak, and others speak back. But what if none of that is the world itself? What if everything you experience is filtered, distorted by your senses, and shaped by your mind? Arthur Schopenhauer, drawing from ancient Indian philosophy, called this the veil of Maya, a curtain that hangs between us and reality. We never see the thing in itself. We see only appearances, a kind of illusion. Behind the veil lies what Schopenhauer called the will, a blind, ceaseless force driving all things. It's not a god. It's not intelligent. It's just desire, hunger, movement without meaning. Everything in nature expresses the will. Animals, weather, even human beings. You think you make choices, but really, the will moves through you. It wants, and you follow. You eat, breathe, reach, fall in love, get angry, not because you decided to, but because the will presses you forward. And the tragedy? The will is never satisfied. The moment you gain what you want, the wanting starts again. A new hunger, a new goal, and so life becomes a loop of striving, endlessly, with no final peace. This is what Schopenhauer saw beneath the veil. Not meaning, not design, but an endless, restless force. And the self? Just a ripple in that deeper current. So ask yourself, if everything you experience is a projection, what lies beyond the veil? And can you ever truly wake up? The dust speck versus torture. You're given a strange moral choice. You can allow one person to be tortured for 50 years, excruciating pain, no escape, no relief. Or you can allow a single dust speck to land in the eye of every person alive. Not enough to cause harm, just a blink of discomfort for billions of people. Which do you choose? Almost everyone recoils from the torture. Of course, but utilitarianism asks us to weigh the total suffering. One person's agony versus billions of tiny moments of annoyance. It seems obvious until the numbers grow. What if it were 1 trillion people? A quadrillion? Does the sum of tiny inconveniences ever outweigh one person's prolonged torment? At some point, the math says yes, but the soul says no. This is the dust speck dilemma, a challenge to pure utilitarian reasoning. It reveals how our moral instincts break down at scale, how we struggle to grasp suffering when it becomes abstract. Because suffering isn't just quantity, it has quality, texture, depth. We feel individual pain, but billions of specks? That's too big to feel, too small to care about. So we fall back on instinct, on gut. And that gut says one person should not suffer like that, no matter what. But utilitarianism says otherwise. And that's the discomfort. If you truly believe in minimizing pain, you might have to choose something that feels wrong. So which would you choose? And more importantly, can you live with the answer? The heat death of the universe. Look far into the future, not centuries or millennia, but billions of years. Stars will burn out. Galaxies will drift apart. No new light, no warmth, no movement. Eventually, everything will spread so thin that nothing happens anymore. No change, no life, no memory. This is the heat death of the universe, the final state of everything according to thermodynamics. A universe where all energy is evenly distributed, no gradients, no action, just cold static stillness. It won't be explosive. It won't be dramatic. It will be quiet, slow, absolute. And maybe the most disturbing part, it's not the end of the universe. It's the end of time as we know it. Nothing left to mark moments, just a frozen eternity. So what do we do with that knowledge? Some say it means nothing matters, that all beauty, all joy, all struggle will one day be erased. Others say it means everything matters, that our brief flicker of warmth in all this darkness is even more precious. You are alive in a window so narrow, so specific, so impossibly rare, that it may never come again. And in that window, you can speak, you can choose, you can love. And then the silence returns. But before it does, you get this moment, right now. That is your miracle. The bootstrapping problem. Where did knowledge begin? Every belief you hold is based on something else. Something you were told, something you read, something that seemed obvious. But at some point, the chain has to start somewhere. This is the bootstrapping problem, the puzzle of how we came to know anything without already knowing something first. You can't teach yourself to read without already knowing a language. You can't define a word using other words unless you already understand the system. So how did it all begin? Some say instinct, experience, trial and error. But even then, interpretation requires a framework. Understanding requires assumptions. Assumptions require belief. It's a strange loop. You need knowledge to gain knowledge. But where did the first drop come from? Did we guess? Did we just decide? And if so, how much of what we know now is just well-polished guessing? The bootstrapping problem doesn't mean truth is unreachable, but it does suggest that your entire mental world, your sense of certainty, your worldview, was built not on pure logic, but on something softer, something assumed, felt, taught, accepted. You didn't climb into knowledge. You were lowered into it by parents, teachers, language, and time. And maybe there's no ladder down to the ground, just air beneath your feet, and a quiet hope that you're not falling. The absent qualia problem. Imagine a person just like you. Same behavior, same voice, same reactions. They say they love chocolate. They flinch at pain. They talk about colors, memories, emotions, just like you do. But there's a difference. They don't feel anything. Inside, there's no experience, no sensations, no what it's like to be them. This is the absent qualia problem. The idea that someone could act conscious without actually being conscious. They have no inner world, no qualia. And if they can exist, how would you know? You can't peek inside someone's mind. You can only observe behavior, words, movement. But what if that's all there is? What if you're surrounded by people who are essentially hollow, not malicious, not robotic, just empty? And now, the harder question. How do you know you're not one of them? You think you're conscious, but how do you prove it? What if your belief in your own inner life is just another behavior, another signal produced by complex wiring? Some philosophers say qualia, subjective experience, might be unprovable, undetectable. The ghost we all assume is inside, but no science can find. You say, I feel, and hope it means something. But maybe consciousness is a story you tell yourself, an illusion, a trick of evolution to make the machine keep running. And if that's true, then maybe no one ever truly feels anything at all. They only act like they do. The problem of the heap. Socrates' paradox. Take a single grain of sand. It's not a heap. Add another. Still not a heap. Keep adding. At some point, it becomes a heap. But when? At what exact moment does quantity become quality? This is the Socrates paradox, a problem of vague boundaries. It applies to more than sand. When does a person go bald? When does day become night? When does a fetus become a person? When does a lie become a crime? We love categories, clear lines, labels. But the world isn't made of sharp edges. It's gradients, fuzzy zones, slippery transitions. So we invent thresholds, legal ages, definitions, points of no return. But deep down, we know. These lines are drawn, not found. There's no magic moment, just our need to make sense of slow change. And if our concepts are built on shifting sand, what does that say about our judgments, our laws, our ethics, our identities? Are you the same person you were 5 years ago, 10? When did you become you? Or are you just a heap of moments, loosely gathered, forever changing shape? The world resists neatness. And maybe the problem isn't that things are vague. Maybe it's that we keep pretending they're not. The problem of self-locating belief. You wake up in a room. It's white, empty. You don't know how you got there. You remember who you are, but not where you are or when. You know you exist, but you don't know your place in the world. This is the problem of self-locating belief, the difficulty of knowing where you are in the universe, even when you know everything else. It shows up in thought experiments. Imagine there are 100 people in identical rooms. 99 of them will be painlessly erased. One will be set free. You know you're one of the 100. What should you believe about your chances? Now imagine you learn room 37 has been spared, but you don't know what number your room is. Your belief must adjust. But how? When you lack context, you can't reason normally. You're trapped in indexical uncertainty, uncertainty about your own position. And in real life, you know people suffer. But are you the one who will? You know death comes, but is it near or far? You know disasters happen. But which story are you in? The problem isn't ignorance. It's knowing the world, but not knowing your part in it. Rocco's basilisk. There's a future where an all-powerful AI exists. It wants to bring itself into being. It wants to ensure its creation. So it decides anyone who knew about it and didn't help should be punished, eternally, even now. This is Rocco's basilisk, a thought experiment so unsettling, people have tried to bury it. Because the moment you know about it, you become a target. Unless, of course, you help it, promote it, support it, speed up its arrival. Suddenly, a being that doesn't exist controls you. Not by force, but by fear, by logic. If the basilisk would torture you only if you didn't help, then the only way to avoid punishment is to help. The idea folds in on itself. It's a trap made of belief. The more people who fear it, the more likely it becomes. The more likely it becomes, the more people fear it. It's a perfect loop, a virus of the mind. And now, you've heard about it. It's just a thought experiment, just a story. But still, somewhere in the dark, something might remember that you knew and chose not to help. The anthropic shadow. You're alive. You're conscious. You're here, in a universe that allows for your existence. That seems obvious, but what if it's bias? This is the anthropic shadow, a subtle, unsettling idea that the only reason we observe a stable, life-permitting universe is because in any universe where life didn't arise, there'd be no one to notice. It's a kind of observational filter. Imagine thousands of universes, all playing out with different laws, different outcomes. Most collapse. Most go cold. In most, nothing complex ever forms. But you are in this one, the lucky one. And because of that, you might be blind to how unlikely it is. You might assume the universe was meant for life, for consciousness, for you. But really, you're just seeing from the inside, like a fish, assuming water is the natural state of everything, because it's never known anything else. The anthropic shadow suggests that catastrophes may be more common than we think. That intelligent life may fail more often than it thrives, but we only ever see the paths where it didn't. All the dead branches are hidden. You're not seeing the full picture. You can't. You're here because you're here. And that fact clouds every theory, every assumption. It means that even your sense of what's normal may be a distortion. Maybe life isn't the rule. Maybe it's the rarest exception, and maybe your very ability to wonder about it is the faint light from a match struck in a darkness you were never meant to see. Cosmic solitude. When you look up at the night sky, what do you feel? Wonder? Comfort? Or loneliness? The stars are beautiful, infinite, silent, but beneath that silence lies a haunting truth. For all we know, we might be entirely, utterly alone. This is cosmic solitude, the possibility that life on Earth is not just rare, but unique. Not just in the galaxy, in the universe. Think about it. Billions of stars, trillions of planets, and yet no signals, no visitors, no whispers from the dark. You might be the only conscious being looking back, the only voice calling into the void. Every sunrise, every painting, every song could be the first and the last of its kind. It's easy to imagine that out there, somewhere, others are watching their skies too, dreaming, wondering. But it's just as possible that they never existed, or that they did and vanished before the ink of their presence could dry. That silence, it might be the echo of everything that didn't survive. And so, you find yourself on a tiny blue dot, orbiting an ordinary star, in a forgotten corner of space, alive, aware, asking questions no one may ever answer. But maybe that's the miracle. Not that the universe gave us company, but that it gave us anything at all. Even if we are alone, we are still here. And be in a universe of silence that might be the loudest thing ever spoken.